Hello and welcome to TVC News. We begin with this development where the Chief of Defence Staff, Christopher Musa, has appealed to Nigerians to explore dialogue and other means to hold leaders accountable instead of resorting to protests that may lead to destruction and other issues. He made this appeal at a one-day dialogue organized by the Institute for Development Research and Training at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. The defense chief stressed that the current climate, such actions could be exploited by those seeking to cause harm to the country.
We don't want anybody to destroy our country. We want our country to grow, we want our country to develop. We don't want anybody to be injured or killed. So we're appealing on behalf of the government, on behalf of the armed forces, on behalf of Nigeria as a nation, that we have gone through so much. We are all victims. That's one thing we should always understand. We are all victims, and that's why it's important not to make it worse, but to make it better. And the only way we can do that is let us hold our leaders accountable by talking to them, ensuring that they do the right thing.
So my advice to the political class is for them to look inwards, look at the social system, address the problems of every social strata. Let's also look at some of these prescriptions of multilateral institutions such as World Bank.
Well, let's return to our focus on the planned nationwide protest. And joining me now for more discussions is Mr. Dotun Hassan. Good to have you on the news at this time once again. Now, I asked you earlier, there have been numerous calls and appeals against this nationwide protest with fears that it could degenerate into violence. Where do you stand in all of this?
Yes, I must first of all establish the fact that it's a fundamental right to exercise our right to displeasure, even in family. But the most important is how will you be able to resolve this issue and proactively stand in the gap to ensure that we're able to achieve the same objective, not to query the objective of the protesters themselves. But the most important thing is that this protest we are talking about is crystal clear to all Nigerians and every reasonable mind that this protest is already hijacked by the agent provocateurs, by the enemies of the state, trying to weaponize the pains and agony of Nigerians that are just coming out of the COVID-19 and considering the precarious state of economy that this present administration inherited. We believe that the only best way we can achieve a noble and developed society is dialogue. There's nothing. I've led several struggles in the past. In my student union days, there's no struggles that we don't end up on the table of dialogue. And it is more better off now that this table of dialogue is not even proposed by us. Mr. President have called for this. So this is the first time we're even having a president calling and engaging and ready to engage the citizens. That's why the leadership of over 407 ethnic nationalities, which I happen to be their Secretary General and the President Yoruba Council worldwide, we owe it a duty of care on behalf of all citizens to sit with Mr. President, engage with Mr. President that these are our problems. These are critical areas, and we can identify and spot the issues. Once we have spot the issues, we all commonly aggregate our opinion nationwide across 774 local governments. Thankfully, Mr. President have given the leeway freedom for all Nigerians at the local government level, meaning our voices will be thoroughly heard. You don't need anybody to carry your opinion. You can aggregate this, and we want the government to explore every channel, including the traditional institution. We appreciate the traditional institution waking up in Partners in Progress. We are having, for the first time, a democracy at work. So if we need to now channel our grievances should not yield us into war. People drumming this beat are not within the geographical space of Nigeria. Majority of them are in US. I watched on the news, one of them was querying that he can press the button of protest in his room. That shows the unserious nature of these people, and we really go against them.
Yeah, point taken on that aspect. Yeah, well, we understand that protest has been tagged hunger protests and is born out of the rising food commodities, which has risen to about 40% compared to about 25% of last year. And we understand this has been attributed to the rise in persistent kidnapping and banditry, which has forced farmers to find it difficult to have access to their farms. Some go as far as paying these bandits money to have access to their farms. But what do you say about this worry in development, and how do you think the government can address this issue of hunger?
Well, let me clarify. There is no, you know, the way our politicians try to nail a dog a bad name can be tagged on anything. Definitely, the people that tied to the hunger strike never consulted each one of us. It could have just been termed a negotiating need for us to chart a way forward on this country. Hunger is not the hype of all our issues. They just decided to use that, to weaponize that. But let me now clarify to you. The president, within the ambit of his ascension as a president of this country, I could remember he was the first person to release the silos for food to be distributed. He has been able to give the military more firepower to fight the insurgents, because one of our cardinal impediments that led us into this is the fact that our agric and farmland have been abandoned as a result of the herdsmen crisis, and this herdsmen crisis has ravaged us for over a decade. And you cannot get anything out of nothing, for the fact that we're about just picking up. It will take a little short while for all these wounds to get healed. And once it gets ill, we're all going to smile. So what I'm trying to say here is not to pat the president in the back. This is the pressure is high now. Let Mr. President ensure that how do we really solve in the immediate term? What are the challenges? Is for Mr. President to have a more direct access to the local government and the market. Create a semblance of where food can be imported either locally, because at the moment now, our local production is not yet in full capacity to serve the entire populace. But if President can increase the import until when we have a power of exportation, but at that period, there will be a semblance of sales of food, especially rice. If we can be buying rice at 30,000 naira for 50 kg, which is possible, why must President give free rice if when we are not in a situation of war? We can afford it, but what will also make us to afford it is the fact that there is another angle to it. Our refinery must be working at full-scale capacity. The reason why is that this is the bedrock of our survival, fuel. Absolutely. So if Mr. President can bring fuel down as a result of the 4 refineries working and that of the Dangote collectively, and when they are working at full capacity, we will meet with Dangote and all the marketers to see reason on why we should be buying our fuel for 100 naira per liter at the same time. Power. All right,
let me quickly ask you this final question, Mr. Dotun. You've made your points. You've made your points very well, and you've made it very well, in fact. But, you know, apart from these efforts the federal government is taking now to cushion the effects of the hardship that Nigerians are currently facing, it has also approved the new national minimum wage of 70,000 naira, and as well as distributing palliatives to state governments to cushion the effects of the economic hardship. But some are saying this isn't enough. The government needs to do more in terms of assuaging the the hardship that Nigerians are currently facing. What other strategies do you think the government needs to explore to address some of these concerns?
Well, productive economy is just the way out. We cannot just be on consumption level every time. Let our governors be in partnership with Mr. President. It seems that our governors are taking a very drawback. And where we have synergy of governance, it's not just Mr. President or the federal government here. We are running a federal state. If all hands is on deck, Nigeria is best enough. We have the human resources. We have the mental capacity. We have a National Assembly that is ready to aggregate their opinion with the executive. In terms of resources, we know Mr. President was magnanimous to move to 70,000 on the minimum wage and promised that every 3 years that should be reviewed. I might just be requesting that 3 years might also be too far. If Mr. President, you know, collectively, if we have a robust family discussion, the president I know, the Bola Ahmed Tinubu I know as a former governor, can magnanimously at 6 months review your salary, even put more additional maybe largesse to supporting and cushioning the effect of the present precarious situation. The modus is the fact that there must be proper legislative support to guide all this. The president must declare an executive order in rescuing the situation. The entire nation must also sit together. This is our country. We cannot afford a war. That's why the leadership of all ethnic nationalities sat in Abuja, resolved collectively that the best way to go is to give Mr. President support and let all of us collectively build a country that is great.